Jessica, do I need to approve that one or no?
No, it's not letting me kick
I
it
got
out.
you. I got you.
This meeting is being recorded.
All right, we're gonna jump into this. I'll kind of kick it off, introduce kind of what we're doing here, and then we had a bunch of questions that came in via whatever channel Jessica collects questions in, so we'll kind of run through those and then open it up. But I think the whole purpose of this is to have open discussion. You got myself and Steve who've been doing this since the inception, literally. So if we can't answer it, your question's probably not going to get answered. So let's just hope for the best on that front. So give me 2 seconds to try to figure out how to share my screen. Let's do this first. Come on. All right. Jessica, do you see my screen?
Yes, I do.
All right. What do you see exactly? Just the
Well,
deck?
I see I can see like the extra slide, the next slide,
That's
and
interesting.
slide.
First timer here. Hold on. I'm sharing the wrong screen. Oh, there we go. All right. Now let's do this. Okay. Now you see it. This looks better. All right. So obviously you're here for PromoStandards Office Hours. It's just something we do every month as a quick way. Sometimes it's easier. These are not trivial questions that you can always answer in a email or a Slack message. So we try to build an open forum for discussion to flush these things out in the open. Jessica does record these, so I'm sure there's a transcription floating around somewhere out there. But that's why we're here today. So it's either going to be short and sweet, or we're going to take the entire full length of time here. But that's why you have Steve and I. So let's figure out how to index slides. Okay, one piece of news. So we'll do some housekeeping before we get to the actual meat and potatoes of this thing. If you were planning on going to the tech summit and you didn't buy a ticket, you lost out because we officially sold out the other day. There's a wait list though. So what tends to happen is as we get a week or two out, people start coming up with whatever excuses to not attend. So we'll tend to get 5 or so drop out. So if you really want to go, I would encourage you join the wait list. The wait list will grow quickly. So that's my 2 cents there. So super awesome though that we sold it out. It's going to be 180-ish people.
Yeah.
In Clearwater Beach, Florida. So for those of you who live in cold climates like myself and like to go to places like Florida in the middle of February, that's what we're doing this year. So excited about that. More, the agenda's posted online. We're kind of filling out some of the details on the agenda, but we're trying to keep a good balance on PromoStandards, industry technology, kind of practical applications of things like AI in the industry, right? You can go on YouTube and watch AI videos, and we're not going to regurgitate that information. We're trying to hone in and give real use cases and panels and, try to figure out what others in the industry and how they're using it, the struggles for just integrations, PromoStandards, AI, the whole security, the whole tech suite is really what we're focusing on. So go on the website, PromoStandards.org, check out the agenda, all those fun things. So like I said, here we are. I'm going to do a kind of quick high level, what we're doing here. And then this is from a picture from our tech summit 2 years ago, it looks like, not last year. And yeah, we're going to get after it. Or maybe this was last year.
It was last year.
Okay, so the number one question that we always get, and we're just going to get it out of the way now, is, I want to introduce myself and introduce Steve. I'm John Norris, Chief Strategy Officer at HIP Promotional Products, PromoStandards board member, longtime PromoStandards enthusiast since day one. Then Steve, you can introduce yourself here.
Steve Lewisser, Vice President of Research at SN Corporation, been involved with PromoStandards since the inception, and I'm currently on the Standards Committee and the Best Practices Committee.
Awesome. Steve's OG for PromoStandards. All right, so back to this. So one of the things that happens every month, everybody wants to know about getting started. Jessica's probably number one question that she gets, people coming out of the blue is like, how do I get started? So a few things. We've built out a resource on PromoStandards.org. There's actually a page called Getting Started, which is sweet. There's some video content that's bookmarked if you want to skip through exactly where you want to land. I think it's me giving a webinar last year or the year before on getting started, or somebody else. But we've posted this content over the years. There's probably a bunch of YouTube content out there. It's still really relevant, but that's your first place to start. So always go there, poke around, see what you can do, start on the website. So that's like getting started with PromoStandards. There's obviously PromoStandards is a member organization now. That is how we fund the organization. That's how we keep the volunteer organizations, the volunteer committees. There's a standards committee which meets multiple times a year, board meetings, all that fun stuff. So make sure you are looking at membership if that's for you. There's 3 different levels of membership, varying degrees of involvement. If you're looking to be involved in a committee, there's a different level of membership for that. So from a purely learning about the community, learning about Slack, learning about the standards and all that, definitely membership is your good way to get started. From hey, I have a website that I want to connect inventory with, how do I get started? And I think really this question somewhat loaded, and it's where you, I guess, sit in the supply chain. So if you're a supplier, obviously suppliers in PromoStandards are the ones that are hosting endpoints. Some service providers are hosting endpoints as well. But if you're on the supplier side, I think the first thing you do is look at some of these standards, obviously inventory, order status, order shipment notifications, start there, build out a simple integration, and then, get your endpoints posted on PromoStandards, and then really get with a supply chain partner, right? So, at HIT, I think we have 400 plus connections to our inventory endpoint. We're transacting a few billion transactions a year of requests to our endpoints. So, for us, it's somewhat a trivial matter because we've been doing it for so long. But if you're new to this, my guess is the reason you're looking at PromoStandards is that somebody has asked you if you integrate with PromoStandards. It's probably a service provider. It's like, hey, how do I get your inventory? Or how do I get your order status? So I would definitely connect with a service provider or a customer of yours who is asking you to do this. There are some very large customers who are asking suppliers to do this. If you're a distributor, and I think the number one question I get from distributors is, hey, like, how do I get started from, connecting to HIT? So you would reach out either through the PromoStandards website of who our technical contacts are, or you'd kind of work your sales channel, and you'd eventually end up at myself, Raj, Chaz, Tiffany, one of us would assign you credentials. We'd get you some sample requests and responses. We have a more hand-holding approach for onboarding for PromoStandards. So, really it goes supplier by supplier when you're going and connecting. But I think the way I see it is find somebody in your supply chain that's important to you on the opposite side of the supply chain and partner with them and work with them to integrate and get connected. And, start on the easy side. Start with inventory, start with order status, start with ship notifications, then work your way into all the product data, PPC, POs, invoices, all that stuff. So that's that high level of getting started. I'm not going to bore everybody with details. Watch the videos on the website, and then you can always then go to Slack, however you found out about this, go to that place, and then essentially you can then work with Jessica, and she'll get you matched up with somebody to help out. Okay, well, I'm going to handle these getting started questions here, just because whatever. Hopefully I addressed some of them already. And then there's a few other series of questions that came in. We'll address those first and then open up to any open discussion that we have. So talked about getting started. We've been in prototype phase and are ready to add several vendors to our own supplier connection to e-commerce platform. So this seems like it's probably a vendor slash e-com provider. And so I'll speak, I think my PromoStandards hat off and say how we deal with this at HIT. So at HIT, we have 2 separate types of PromoStandards connections. We have obviously our distributor customers, and then we have a series of service providers. We give the service providers a more generic set of credentials that obviously can't access customer specific tools like customer specific pricing. The things that will not be relevant to them will be order status or shipment notifications, anything really that invoices, POs. So really they're limited to a pulling inventory, pulling order or product data, and then, transacting PPC and media. I say that because, if you're a customer of ours, you get access to all of your data instantly. I would say most suppliers probably have in my past life, probably have a very similar setup of how they're getting you. So to get credentials, you can either come in through the PromoStandards site to find out who the contacts are at these companies, or you can work through Slack and find people, or you work through your existing supply chain. Is there a single integration with PromoStandards that connects with all supplier partners? Great question. There are a handful of service providers, and I think we have a service provider directory still on PromoStandards.org that shows what member service providers offer which services. And I will tell you that, yes, there is one or two single integration PromoStandards members in the service provider directory that connect with all. I don't know. All is a very tricky question. I would say a lot of supplier partners. I'm not going to specifically call them out because you can find them from the service provider directory, and Jessica can post a link in the follow-up to this of where that directory is. But I know Dave Schultz and the team worked aggressively to try to build out an offering for member service providers that are offering goods and services in the PromoStandards arena. So that is that. All right, Steve, I'm going to turn some of this over to you. I don't know if you need to share your screen, but are you good to take some of these best practices in troubleshooting?
Yes. So
Okay.
I have them in a little bit different order,
Yeah, go ahead.
but that's fine. Let me just go down. I took some notes so I can answer. So the first one about troubleshooting items that don't populate on the purchase order to see if it's from the vendor or your software. Ultimately, this one, you're probably going to need to drill down into the actual request that's being submitted that contains the XML for the purchase order object. It very well could be is if you see this across multiple customers on multiple platforms, it very well could be the software itself, or if it's just a subset, or maybe they're all using the same service provider to send you POs, there might be a kink in what they're sending you. So one of the things is this is contract based, so the actual order of the fields in the XML matter. So we've seen cases where people have populated all the fields, but they're all in a different order, and then the receiver that takes that package can't process it properly. So it's important that everything follows the contract exactly, including the enumerated values to make sure that there's actually a real item in the list for that. So ultimately, the exact order is very important. And the other thing we have seen is that you'll have required fields that are just missing. So ultimately you're going to have to dig a bit deeper on that and possibly reach out to customers you're seeing that for to see if they can get you the actual XML that they're sending to you.
Yeah, I think just speaking from seeing this happen in our own endpoints, what we tend to see is we have our purchase order endpoint, if it sees a line item, the item itself, the product ID, that it doesn't recognize, we drop those off, right? When we go to insert it into our ERP, if there's not a match, we're dropping that, which is probably what this is seeing. So I would say the biggest thing here is confirming that you have the proper product ID, which is probably why most suppliers would be nuking your line items. Some people are trying to pass bad data types and the product ID. I mean, product ID is probably a char that could take a bunch, but we're seeing, mismatched data types would cause an error. So I guess the pros and cons here is, as a supplier, I'm not in the business of rejecting purchase orders. So we typically wouldn't outright reject your purchase order as long as has a valid line item. Sometimes we tend to see people are trying to pass in charges into the line items of a purchase order. So make sure that you're filling out the charge array and not trying to hammer a line item that's a setup charge for a configured purchase order. That's typically what we see. But to Steve's point, this all comes back down to is when you're saying, hey, supplier X, supplier at promo, why did you delete my line item 1? first thing we're going to do is look at the payload, the request that was posted, and say, well, it's because this is not a valid item number or whatever. So that's my 2 cents there. So go ahead, Steve.
Okay.
Can I ask one quick question?
Yep.
Steve, you said that sometimes there's completely missing fields. Does that automatically make a failure then if there's missing field?
It can. It depends on the platform you're using. There's some that actually publish and enforce the actual contract, which is based off the WSDL, and it can get to the point where, there's automation involved so that, the framework handles it. Other people are just accepting posts and parsing it into what they need, where the order of things may not matter. But officially it should follow the order. And if you're using a system like, .NET has WCF, and there's some other frameworks out there for different, coding languages that, would potentially fail if it doesn't match up close enough to what it's expecting. Or it may go down to a certain point. You might get down to the 10th field, and then everything after that point effectively is basically dropped off.
It drops it out, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yep, that makes sense. All right, that's all I had.
Okay.
Thank you.
So the second question, when a partner endpoint isn't responding for days, the first thing really, your implementation should have the ability to retry a request when it fails. There's any number of issues like upgrades, maintenance, something temporary going on that might just be a couple minutes or whatever. I would say don't just keep spamming the endpoint. You can try again later. If you notice that it's been down for a while, like in this specific case, you should reach out to them to find out if there's issues. Maybe it's something with your account. Maybe they're going to be down or doing an upgrade, or maybe moved it to a different location. You never know. But I would also just suggest, you don't want to just go right away to the general Slack channel and say, hey, this company's service isn't responding. Give them a chance first before you call them out in the general chat. And anything to add to that, John?
Yeah, I mean, what we tend to see is if they're, to Steve's point, it might just be you're getting throttled because you've made too many requests. So always, I know there's quite a few. There's some distributor customers that we throttle because they're making, 50 requests a second, right? So I guess always make sure that the problem's not on your side, that you're not hammering and you've been blacklisted from that endpoint. So, if it's a larger partner for you, just make sure that you're communicating, hey, here's my request cadence. I'm going to be, make sure you always check your side that you're just not letting it go hog wild and trying to pull as much data as possible. Because then all we're going to do is queue these up asynchronously, and we're going to respond back at our own leisure and not, handle your 50 requests a second. So just something that we've seen. It's not always the supplier's endpoint.
Okay. Question 3, encountered a vendor that only returns invoices with an open balance when you're calling it by date. I'm not sure if you call it through other methods, if it'll return it or not, but that is not the intended behavior of the endpoint. All invoices and credit memos, if they're using them, that match the criteria you're sending in your request should be returned. It doesn't matter if it's an open invoice, a paid invoice, they all should be there. And another related to this, the invoice document is a source document and it shouldn't change over time. So every invoice that's returned, if you're doing a specific PO number or whatever, you should always get the same data back. Basically the equivalent if somebody printed a PDF of the invoice basically at the time it was invoiced. So, amount due should only be based off of prepayments at the time. It shouldn't go down to 0 as it gets paid off. So another thing is the standards committee has discussed, next revisions of standards. And the next version of the invoice standard, we have notes about the ability to return open invoices, invoice balances, and also statements. So in that aspect, you would still be able to get the official invoice along with some more operational things as far as what is still outstanding.
I got nothing for that. I was just checking our endpoints as you were talking to make sure it's not us. We're good. It's not us. All right. Next, this is you, Steve, and then we'll open it up afterwards to kind of more free-form questions.
Okay, so what are the implementation steps and instructions? Obviously, what John started this meeting off, you want to go through that. The only thing I can really add to his higher level introduction was you want to assemble a knowledgeable team, not only just of development resources, whether they're internal, external, but also relevant SMEs on your side. So if you're doing stuff with the order process or purchasing, you want to get people from your company involved with that because they know it best. If you just hire a random developer to do it that doesn't have a deep knowledge of the industry, chances are you won't likely end up with a successful integration. So as far as steps after that, download the specs in WSDL, read the documentation, go to the website for PromoStandards for the best practices, make sure that you're using the fields properly, whether you're publishing or consuming it. Simply for publishers, you want to include all the fields that you have available. You can either tie them directly into your system, or you can have some kind of cache to cache the data so it's not continually hitting your system. Also be prepared to clean up your data and possibly update your business rules. And ultimately, line up a few customers or service providers to test what you have before going live and letting the general population use them. For consumers, you want to determine what fields you need and make sure that you put them in your system. This includes downloading the product images you plan on using. Don't keep hitting them. Identify places in your system that the data will be visible when your users are in the system. And for product data, it may just be a subset of the product catalog that's relevant to you. And, ultimately be prepared to update your user interface to show other information from that supplier, such as maybe on your website, you might want to show the supplier's inventory when they drill into that product. Not saying it's that supplier, but you can still do that. Anything to add there, John?
No, you got it covered.
Okay. Are there more modern REST options, such as example PS RESTful, we should use, and what's the recommended approach for the legacy endpoint? So I'll just say REST options are coming. The standards committee is actively working on the first REST-based service, which is product data. PromoStandards does not endorse or recommend a specific third-party solution. There's a bunch of different things out there. And there are third-party solutions that can give you the data in other formats like REST, JSON, GraphQL, etc. But those are not official PromoStandards endpoints, but more or less like a translator or wrapper to query or return the data into different format. So when you're looking at a third party, verify that the data coming back is accurate and find out what they do with your data. Are they doing anything with your customer specific pricing, your invoices, et cetera? Because you want to be concerned if that gets out. And personally, I've experienced by getting support cases for customers using our endpoints that there have been some third parties improperly translating the data or upsizing it or downgrading it to different versions of the service.
Yeah, that's what he said. What Steve said is a good point. We run into that hit from time to time where we'll have pricing updates that happen at hit in our PPC service, and then whatever aggregator out there doesn't have the same pricing update frequency that we would have. So there's the pros and cons, right? There are aggregators out there. I think it's just what makes sense for your business model. I would say if you are trying to rebuild a promo catalog of products, you're probably going to want to look at some sort of aggregator. But if you're looking to integrate with a subset of your supply chain, you're going to probably want to look at direct integrations with the suppliers that you're doing business with today. So just know that, always getting information from the source is the most accurate. But it's really, what's your tolerance for stale or post manipulated data. So that's all I got there.
Right. And as far as legacy endpoints, I'm not sure if they meant the SOAP XML endpoints or like prior versions. If it is a prior version, you just kind of need to see if you want to connect with somebody, that's publishing. If they don't have the newer versions, you can approach them to do the newer version, or if enough are still on the prior version, you'd want to obviously potentially implement both, like Inventory 1.2.1 and Inventory 2. Okay. So data sync best practices was actually at an in-person meeting in September with the best practices committee. We actually started discussing this information on far as how often and how frequently you should hit different types of data. And basically it boils down to is some of the endpoints are continually changing where others are a bit more static. Your inventory is obviously going to change the most. You're going to want to hit that multiple times before you're creating a purchase order to make sure there's availability. Like product data, media change pretty infrequently, so you'd want to schedule to determine when you would want to, hit those again to check for newer change products and then synchronize those with your system. That's pretty simple. One thing though is as far as syncing data also on the publishing side, if you're not going to have direct ties into your systems to hit it live and you're going to cache that data, you just need to make sure that you're updating your caches at intervals so that the data is still relevant and timely when people query it.
Yeah, one thing. So let's take inventory as a good example here, right? So you have to figure out. So inventory is probably the most time sensitive one that keeps coming up. I mean, you could argue that pricing is as well, but inventory is the most dynamically changing. So we would recommend putting my hit hat on, once a day at a minimum. We have customers that are trying to do it every 15 minutes. We're not updating our inventory endpoint every 15 minutes, so that's a little rambunctious. I would say the cadence that we see is most successful is two different ways. So the e-com companies will tend to do it once a day and then do it on product page load and then do it at checkout. All right. So it's really what's your use case for that data. If you're populating a system and trying to search on inventory levels, once a day is good enough, right? Because chances are it hasn't changed that significantly. We have quite a few of the larger distributors that are going every hour. That seems to work for them as well. But just keep in mind, we have, call it 5,500 products, 100,000 SKUs. So you have to be able to make it through 100,000 requests every hour, and that might not be for you. So we recommend don't go out and if you've never sold this item or never had a search on this item, don't go out and query the data just because, right? Try to have some sort of logic on what items you're refreshing more frequently. Maybe you take your top 500 items and get those every hour and then shore it all up at the end of the night. But we tend to see people doing smart queries at certain events in their business cycle, and that's checkouts, page loads, product page loads, category page loads, things like that. So, all right. So having said that, we're going to open it up here for some questions, Q&A. Just let it rip or raise your hand or something, and maybe there's a good organized way to do this where it's not chaos. So if you kind of use the old raise hand, then Steve and I will call on you, and we'll just kind of go at it for 30 minutes if we have enough questions. Carlos C. So someone I can email, blah, 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 blah. Where did that question go, Jessica? There it is. Yes, I'm troubleshooting best practices slide.
He can reach out to me in Slack if he wants. I
Yeah,
believe you're going to get a message from Jessica's AI agent about the notes of it.
So we do post the recording on our YouTube channel. It should be up by tomorrow. Just depends on how long it takes to get it and upload it, but it's done fairly quickly. And I'd be happy to send aside notes if you want to email me at admin@promostandards.org. I can also email notes.
Sweet. All right. Who else? Anyone else have questions? You can fire them into the Q&A, fire them into raising your hand. I don't really have a preference. I don't care. What else? Anybody else have something? Come on, don't be shy.
Mine is more, we did a pilot program with, actually we've got a connection with HIT as well as a few others. And basically what we were trying to do is, this was several years ago when everything was in its infancy. we were able to send POs, and that was great. We're in the process of really vamping up. We're a print and promo e-com, but we've also acquired a promo company ourselves. So I'm trying to get set up, and it's completely different than what it was back in the day. So when I log in, I had my VP set up our account, pay for everything, for at least an associate. I'm not able to see. She assigned it to me. I'm not able to see. So I think this is more of a one-on-one kind of troubleshooting thing, possibly, but I'm trying to figure out how I can, number one, see the company and make sure that because I can see the resources. I can see the other members. I just can't go into our company, view all the things. I can't create endpoints, as a actual supplier, or anything else like that. So, that was my primary of, coming in here today.
Yeah, so your best bet is going to be definitely, so the member, like your own company information is managed by, so we have a membership management platform that we use called Wild Apricot or whatever the heck it's called these days.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the engine behind it that manages that. So you can work with Jessica through I posted her email in here.
Okay.
Work with Jessica. Hold on. And then I'm going to actually share my screen because we have other questions, that are pertaining to this. So,
And the new site definitely makes it a lot easier to manage your endpoints if you have that access for your company.
yes, right. So everything's access based. So just make sure you have the right access, and Jessica can work with you on that one. Somebody asked about the member directory. So there's a few different resources here at the top of the website. Member directory is obviously self-explanatory. What I talked about earlier, the service provider directory was the kind of the services by service provider, your documents. So this is all of your, specs, WSDLs, all this fun stuff, endpoints. So by supplier, promo. So that's in here. All right. So here's all my hit endpoints, things like that. And then obviously the best practices committee. That's the good stuff. And then the web service validator. So your biggest thing is going to be documentation, endpoints, and then the member directory, and then work with Jessica to get your permissions and company name to display it properly, because it's all driven that way now. So.
Okay. So get with Jessica on that.
Yeah.
I'm opening up the chat. You said her email is in here.
Yeah, it's admin@PromoStandards.org. So.
Oh, admin at PromoStandards. Okay. I will send a message to that email.
Okay. There was another question posted in the chat. Client telling us they coded their promo standards to the WSDL and made a comment. This is pretty low level, but there's sequences in the XSD, and we don't specifically state min occurs. So that's the minimum times that element must be there. And by default within WSDL, that if you don't specify min occurs, it is 1. So therefore it is required. If it says min occurs equals 0, that makes it optional. And I believe some cases we've also used max occurs, like for addresses, you can have maybe up to 4, or notes on a shipment, on the track on the label, we allow it to go up to, I think, 2. So you just have to be careful on that, just to make sure. But yes, you can always say min occurs 1, but that's the default behavior, so we don't specify it. So yeah, if there is a field listed anywhere and it doesn't say min occurs, it is required.
There you go. I would have not been able to answer that one, so thank you, Steve.
Yeah, I've written my fair share of those. And I think you kind of there's the question in there about finding a contact on particular vendors. John just showed the website on how you can get some of that. You can also reach out through your sales channel with them, and I'm sure they can hook you up with somebody.
I think the member directory is pretty good way to start. If I'm loading it up myself right now, it's a bit to load because there's a bazillion members in there, but That's always been a good source. And because in the advanced search, you could, there's a lot of properties that you can search on. So, I would start there.
Can you double check the member directory? Just go in there, because they posted a screenshot. It looks like it's blank or it's not
It's
populating
loading.
properly, or it just takes a while.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it does take a while to load.
We can work with the vacancy if we can get that specs. I'm watching it spend into perpetuity myself. So, yeah.
Well, everybody's hitting it probably right now.
Okay.
And Jessica, I had actually sent an email to the admin. I just wanted to verify, but I did send one on the 14th, I think. So I'll just resend that one if that's okay. I don't want to spam you either, so.
All right. What else? Anything?
Sorry, I didn't realize I was muted. Yes, please resend that because I don't see that email. Maybe maybe it's in the wrong folder. I'm not sure, but if you could resend it and put it up top.
Thank you for answering that question about the invoices earlier in the opening balance. You did say something else that I was kind of surprised at, and that was that the invoices should be considered source documents and not change. So, for example, if you pay an invoice, I forget what the actual field name is, but the balance remaining should stay as before.
I don't know if I agree with that either, that statement. That's not how we've implemented it. I raised my eyebrows when he said it. I know the intent. I think Steve was saying that, like, why are you changing your invoices? Right? Now the invoice is the invoice, but the outstanding balance against that invoice is ever changing. So, I don't know. I'm actually looking up the actual documentation right now just to look at it.
Yeah, the invoice amount due field, it's the total of the invoice amount due after applying any prepayments in the currency specified. So it's basically the it is your invoice amount more or less after prepayments. So.
Okay. I guess technically that would be correct. Is there not a field? I thought there was a field.
There's invoice amount and then advanced payments and then invoice amount due, which probably people just read invoice amount due and figured it's current amount due.
That's definitely what I did.
But yeah, we'll definitely clarify that and have other ways that you can see, open balances and stuff, and even possibly statements with the next iteration of this.
Okay.
To Steve's point, there's really not a way that would support, because even in the query types, you can search by PO number, invoice number, date search, or available date search. There's really not a way to even filter and query upon that data set. And so I would say whoever leaves to the initial question, like, you absolutely should not only be returning things that are open balance. My guess is, just being around the block a time or two, their ERP probably does something with them after they're paid and move them to some other data source and they don't exist there, or whatever whatever they're filtering on is false. So yeah, but I would say 9 out of 10, 99 out of 100 suppliers would not implement it that way. So
yeah, that's what I've experienced. I just found one and they seemed very certain that was how it should be.
You tell them you went to the PromoStandards happy hour office hours, and John Norris and Steve said you're doing it wrong.
I like that idea, happy hours. Send everybody drinks.
No, the way today's going, it might become one. All right, what else we got? Anything? This has been productive. Going once, going twice. All right, so like I said, we started this thing off with, this happens every month. If you're not attending the Tech Summit so far, join the wait list. You'll be sad to miss out because We've been doing a tech event in the industry for years. We took it over 5 or so years ago. It's a good time. Great way to network, community. I was looking at some of these names. Quite a few of you have been there. But it's the way to, if you're looking to connect with the technology community and the promotional products industry, this is the place where you will get the most bang for your buck by far. So make it happen. Jessica, anything else we're missing that you need to cover in terms of housekeeping?
Nope, this is perfect. Thank you both so much for coming and helping. Appreciate
Thank you.
it.
I have one more comment that if you are new, make sure you go to the Tech Summit, obviously. But I am also doing a breakout session on Intro to Promo Standards where we're going to get really deep into the weeds.
Okay. Exciting. All right, everybody. Have a good rest of your day.
Bye-bye.